Greetings. My name is Todd Hall, Professor of International Relations and Director of the University of Oxford's China Center. Today I'll be your host for the University of Oxford China Center's new series in which we introduce new research concerning China. We ask our guests to share with you one big thing from their research. Our guests today are Jonathan Caverly and Peter Dombrowski, professors at the U.S. Naval War College. They recently presented their work in our seminar series on the international relations of China and are co-authors of a special issue in the Journal of Security Studies on the new era of maritime competition. In that issue, they published the article, Cruising for Bruising, Maritime Competition in an Anti-Access Age, which will be the basis for our discussion today. So tell me, what is your one big thing?
The one big thing that we're trying to present in the special issue is that competition between China and the United States is likely to take place at sea. That's where most of the friction is going to be, given the geopolitics of this age. When we say sea, we can also think of this as the global commons. So places like space, cyberspace, air also work similarly to operating in the maritime. And security studies doesn't really address those types of operating environments very well so far. For our Cruising for Bruising article, our big thing is the fact that many people are pretty sanguine about crisis stability in the Pacific between the United States and China for a variety of technological reasons, such as the ability to launch missiles from mainlands, which should basically result in a more defensive-oriented world. And Peter and I, given our experience working for the Navy and our research, are actually worried that through a combination of other technologies, through a combination of the unique operating environment that is the maritime domain, as well as strategic culture, possibly in China, but especially in the United States, may actually lead to a much more unstable crisis stability going forward. That is, any bit of friction between China and the United States might actually escalate into a larger conflict quite quickly. That's what we have to say.
Very good. So could you say a little bit more about how this changes existing thinking?
Yes, so it changes sort of two bodies of thinking. The first is sort of thinking amongst proponents of navies and navalists. It suggests that the buildup of maritime forces and their intersection in the South China Sea and elsewhere have real potential to destabilize not only the regional balance of power and the regional security system, but also, given the size and prominence of China in the United States, the entire globe. Combined with thinking about international relations theories, we talk about great power transition and the rise of China as a global power, this suggests we're entering into a period where crisis stability can no longer be assured. And certainly the policy implications are is we might want to work towards finding ways to ameliorate that instability. Secondly, in the security studies world, the whole issue, special issue in security studies, in our piece in particular, make an argument that we need to move beyond the sort of territorially based, land power based analyses of great power intersections leading to war and conflict. In this case, for obvious geographic regions, it's very likely to be a maritime competition. And if war is to unfortunately result, it's very likely that the main action will take place at sea. And this is something that security studies is only just beginning to grapple with. In our group of authors in the security studies edition are sort of making a path through the intellectual conceptual thickets for thinking clearly about competition at sea.
Thank you. And so what motivated you to write about this? And so, I mean, just to recap just a little, so you're saying that we're moving into an era of instability, and this instability is in no small part a function of what we're seeing in terms of technological developments combined with the fact that competition between China and the United States is likely to take place in the maritime space. And so, but what is it that motivated you to write about this?
Well, I'll start, but maybe John can jump in. I mean, I've worked for the Navy for 22 years. I'm a traditionally trained international relations scholar. But one of the things I've really noticed in this period where I kind of cross the boundary between security studies and international relations scholars and people inside the officer corps and inside the policy world, is that there's what John and I have used the phrase bridging the straits. There is a gap between thinking in the academic world and in the policy world and in the officer corps. And we're trying to find a way to reconcile and to identify the key differences in this thinking so that each side can benefit from the insights and thinking of the other, and perhaps we can come to a better synthesis of how to approach this coming world. Over to John.
I think Peter summed it up well. The one thing I would add, and we sort of conclude both our introduction and our actual submitted chapter to the special issue, there's a policy disconnect as well. There's a real civil-military relations gap. The Navy has traditionally been the more arcane of the services because it's highly technical. It's very expensive. It involves a life and a culture that is quite removed from the civilian world. And to date, I think the civilian policy world has not taken as much of an interest in the doings of the Navy, and that will have real consequences going forward. We can anticipate a world, and a lot of the articles in the special issue address this, where the Navy comes up with a plan for a conflict and presents it to the civilians will say, wait a second, this is a terrible idea. You go back to the drawing board and the Navy won't necessarily have a plan. And so we have a couple of examples of that by Montgomery and Cunningham that talk about blockade as a potentially alternate mission that the Navy doesn't spend as much time thinking about and has its own set of escalatory problems associated with it. And so in general, one thing we're appealing for is going forward, there has to be a much greater integration between the civilian policy world and the uniformed naval services on both sides, both China and the United States going forward.
Thank you so much for giving an overview of your research. If you wish to know more, please visit the website for the Journal Security Studies, where you'll find their article and other articles free to access in volume 29. We will also be providing links on our webpage. And so that concludes our episode for today. We hope that you'll join us again. You can follow us on YouTube or find links to our videos and podcasts at the University of Oxford China Center website. Goodbye.